Caucasus region, map hello, and welcome to the Deep Dive, where we bring you the kind of analysis you won't find anywhere else. Today we have something very special. We're going to look at an event that's shifting the geopolitical landscape of the entire Caucasus region. But don't worry if you're not up to date on all the latest news. That's what we're here for. But first things first, what exactly is happening? Well, let's start with a statement that might surprise some of you. The decades-long standoff between Armenia and Azerbaijan may have just entered its final chapter. This isn't just diplomatic language either. A series of agreements reached recently signal a significant diplomatic breakthrough, a major shift in territorial control, and a realignment of international influence in this volatile region. And if you're thinking, this sounds too good to be true, then I understand. The Caucasus has been a powder keg of tension for decades. But this latest round of negotiations may very well be more than just another attempt at a fragile peace. Now let's get into it. To really understand what's on the line, we need to go back to the root of this conflict, which dates back to the dissolution of the Soviet Union. When the USSR broke up, two newly independent states, Armenia and Azerbaijan, found themselves at war over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Why? Well, the simple answer is a complex mix of historical claims, ethnic tensions, and a whole lot of strategic maneuvering. In fact, there's so much history here that it would take hours to unpack it all. But to put it succinctly, both nations had laid claim to Nagorno-Karabakh, and when the Soviet Union withdrew its peacekeeping forces, the result was conflict. Now fast forward through several years of war and hundreds of lives lost, and we see a ceasefire established in 1994. As a result, Armenia secured not only Nagorno-Karabakh, but also 7 surrounding districts. This became the status quo for almost 3 decades. And I mean almost 3 decades. The balance of power between these two countries remained delicate and precarious. This frozen conflict, as it's known, became a sort of political chessboard, with each side supported by a network of allies and rival powers. The main players behind the scenes were Turkey and Russia, who each provided political and military backing to their respective allies. Now this brings us to a critical point. The reason we're doing this deep dive today is because that fragile balance has shifted. The ceasefire that held since 1994 was broken in September 2020 when Azerbaijan launched a counter-offensive. They made substantial gains, reclaiming significant portions of the territories previously occupied by Armenia. This raises the question, why did this happen? Why, after almost 30 years, did Azerbaijan suddenly feel emboldened to initiate this offensive? Well, there are a few reasons, and they can be boiled down into 3 main factors. First, a significant evolution in the geopolitical landscape, especially with the war in Ukraine, draining the attention and resources of many global powers. Russia, once seen as a steadfast ally of Armenia, is now perceived as less reliable, allowing space for alternative diplomatic solutions. Second, a dramatic change in the military balance between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And this shift was driven primarily by Azerbaijan's increasing investments into its military capabilities. Now this might sound surprising, given that Armenia is located in what is commonly referred to as the South Caucasus, a region dominated by Russia. You might think that Armenia's ties to Russia would have ensured its military superiority in the region, but the reality is much more nuanced. According to our research, Azerbaijan's spending on its military doubled from 2010 to 2018, reaching approximately $4.2 billion, or 3.6% of its GDP. Meanwhile, Armenia's military expenditure remained relatively low at around $1.6 billion. or about 4% of Azerbaijan's defense budget. Moreover, Azerbaijan's procurement of high-tech military equipment, like Israeli drones, played a pivotal role in their victory in the 2020 war. By contrast, Armenia's arsenal comprised mostly of Soviet-era weaponry, and according to an assessment by the International Crisis Group, its air defences were virtually non-existent. Third, economic growth. Azerbaijan's economy grew rapidly thanks to oil and gas exports. This economic boom enabled them to invest heavily in infrastructure and defence, ultimately tipping the scales of power in their favour. So there you have it, the three key factors that lead to this major shift in power. But remember, this is a developing story, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it to bring you the latest updates. Now let's delve deeper into the agreement itself. What does it cover, and what are its implications for the region? After all, the mere mention of an end to this conflict might sound utopian, given the turbulent history of the region. At its core, this deal revolves around two key pillars. First, the restoration of transport links across the region, and second, the withdrawal of Armenian forces from the areas surrounding Nagorno-Karabakh. Let's start with the transportation links, because this is where things get really interesting. On October 2nd, 2023, during a ceremony in Brussels, Armenia and Azerbaijan pledged to restore 5 transportation routes connecting the two countries. These routes are crucial for regional connectivity and economic growth, and they've been disrupted for decades. The plan is to transform these routes into modern transportation arteries. The project includes railways, roads, and pipelines. This initiative is not merely about transportation. It's about opening gateways for trade, energy, and cultural exchanges. For instance, one of the routes is set to connect the Iranian border to the city of Nakhchivan, which is an autonomous republic within Azerbaijan. Another route is planned to link Azerbaijan to Armenia's second-largest city, Gyumri, and a third route is designed to connect the city of Kazvin in Iran to the Russian region of Dagestan. Once operational, these routes will serve as vital conduits for energy shipments, trade, and potentially even passenger travel. It's like reconnecting veins and arteries that were severed during the conflict. But just like any major infrastructure project, there are bound to be complexities and challenges along the way. The agreement calls for joint committees to oversee the project, which includes representatives from both Armenia and Azerbaijan. They'll work to coordinate on the logistics, financing, and construction. But remember, trust isn't exactly abundant in this region. Decades of conflict leave scars that don't disappear overnight, which brings us to the second pillar of the deal, the withdrawal of Armenian forces from the surrounding districts. This aspect of the agreement is essentially a reversal of the 1994 ceasefire lines. Armenia will withdraw its troops from areas outside of Nagorno-Karabakh, returning them to their internationally recognized borders. This move is expected to reset the territorial boundaries, bringing them closer to the pre-war situation. But let's not sugarcoat this. This process is not without its challenges. The withdrawal needs to be meticulously planned to ensure the safety and security of both civilians and military personnel. We're talking about moving troops and equipment across potentially hostile landscapes. There's also the issue of refugees and internally displaced persons who need to be considered throughout this process. All in all, it's a big undertaking, but the potential benefits are significant. Now, with these two pillars in place, let's talk about the impact this agreement could have on the broader region. If successful, this deal could open doors for increased trade, investment, and diplomatic relations. For instance, it could pave the way for the creation of new businesses, joint ventures, and cross-border partnerships. It might also lead to a reduction in military spending, for both Armenia and Azerbaijan, allowing them to allocate more resources towards their economies. However, it's essential to remain pragmatic. We're talking about a region with a history of conflict and external interference. There are internal political challenges in both Armenia and Azerbaijan. Both nations will need strong leadership and public support to push through with the necessary reforms. Furthermore, there's a risk of external interference from countries with vested interests in the region. We're talking about powers like Russia, Turkey, and Iran. Each of these nations has a unique relationship with Armenia and Azerbaijan, and they could potentially try to sway the situation in their favor. That's why it's important to have a neutral platform like ours, to bring you these events as they unfold without bias or censorship. We believe in the power of knowledge, and we're committed to providing you with the tools to understand our world better. In the meantime, the road ahead is fraught with both opportunities and challenges. The agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan has the potential to reshape the Caucasus region. It could usher in an era of cooperation, stability, and growth. But it also comes with its fair share of risks and uncertainties. Only time will tell how this story unfolds. And we at The Deep Dive will be right here bringing you the insights you need to navigate these turbulent times. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and above all, stay engaged. Your understanding of the world matters, so keep asking questions, keep seeking answers, and keep shaping your future. And thank you for being a part of our journey. Together, we can continue to unravel the complexities of our world. Thank you for watching this episode of The Deep Dive. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more insightful content. Your support helps us continue producing quality analysis on global events. Stay updated.